Have you ever come face to face with something so powerful, so wild, that it changes you forever? I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't prepared for it. But in that moment, everything I thought I knew about the world, about myself, shifted. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My breath was shallow, caught somewhere between fear and awe. Just a few feet away, staring straight into my soul, was the most powerful creature I had ever seen. A silverback gorilla, massive, unshaken. His dark eyes locked onto mine, unblinking, reading me in a way that felt almost human. My body refused to move. I knew that one wrong step, one sudden motion, could change everything. But he didn't lunge. He didn't charge. He just watched, as if he were the one deciding what would happen next. And in that moment, I realized I was standing in the presence of something greater than myself, a force of nature, a being that didn't just demand respect, but one that commanded it. I had come here searching for something. Adventure? Maybe. A story to tell? Probably. But what I found was something I never could have imagined, something that would stay with me for the rest of my life. Before I take you to that exact moment, let me tell you how I got here, and why this single encounter changed my life forever. The journey began long before I ever set foot in the jungle. For years, I had dreamed of seeing a silverback in the wild, but no documentary, no photograph, could ever prepare me for the reality of it. I had heard the stories, tales of their sheer power, their intelligence, their ability to communicate in ways we barely understand. But hearing about something and experiencing it firsthand are two completely different things. When I finally arrived, the air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of damp earth and vegetation. The guides briefed us, their voices steady, filled with both respect and caution. Stay quiet, move slowly, and never look a silverback directly in the eyes, one of them said. You're a guest in their world, and they decide whether you stay or go. His words sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't a zoo. There were no fences, no barriers, nothing separating us from the wild. The only thing standing between us and a 1,000-pound gorilla was an unspoken understanding that we did not belong here. The trek was grueling. Thick vines clawed at my legs, the mud swallowed my boots with every step, and the jungle itself seemed determined to push us back. Every sound was a question. Was that just the wind, or was something watching us? Hours passed, sweat dripped from my forehead, and just as I started to wonder if we would find them at all, the guide in front of me froze. He lifted his hand, signaling for silence. My pulse quickened. Then, barely visible through the dense foliage, a dark shape moved. It was subtle, almost ghost-like, but I knew instantly we had found them. I could hear them before I saw them. The rustling of leaves, the low grunts, the occasional deep, rumbling breath. And then, as we took a few cautious steps forward, the jungle opened up just enough for me to see them. A family of gorillas. Mothers cradling their young, juveniles playfully swaying on branches, the delicate balance of life unfolding right in front of me. But before I could even take it all in, I felt it. A shift in the air, a presence unlike anything else. And then, he appeared. He stepped forward from the shadows, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. The jungle, the sounds, even my own breath. It was just him, the silverback, towering, powerful, and completely unshaken by our presence. His dark eyes swept over us, unreadable yet deeply knowing. He didn't move quickly, didn't rush, but every step he took felt deliberate, like he was reminding us exactly whose territory we had entered. I felt my entire body tense. My heart pounded in my chest, my instincts screaming at me to do something. Run, freeze, look away. But I couldn't move. I was locked in place, caught between awe and fear. He was close enough now that I could see the scars on his thick black fur, the sheer size of his hands, the raw strength in every muscle. And yet, there was something else. A presence. A command of the space around him that was more than just dominance, it was understanding. He knew exactly who he was, and more importantly, he knew exactly who we were. One of the guides whispered behind me, barely audible, "Stay still. No sudden movements." I swallowed hard, willing myself to obey. The silverback stopped just a few feet away, his massive chest rising and falling with deep, steady breaths. Then, without breaking eye contact, he let out a low, rumbling grunt. It vibrated through the air, through my bones. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement, a reminder of the rules. We were in his world now, and he was letting us know that he was in control. Seconds stretched into eternity. Every fiber of my being was hyper-aware of him, the weight of his presence, the sheer unpredictability of what could happen next. Would he accept us? Challenge us? Dismiss us entirely? I didn't know. I just knew that whatever happened in the next few moments, it would be something I would never forget. Then, just as I thought I understood the weight of the moment, he did something that took my breath away. He exhaled, a deep, slow breath that felt almost deliberate. His massive shoulders relaxed, and with a final glance, he turned away. Not in fear, not in submission, but in something that felt even more powerful. Acceptance. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I had been holding. My legs felt weak, my hands slightly shaking, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. He moved with purpose, each step heavy yet effortless, as if he carried the entire jungle on his back. And then, without warning, he stopped. He reached down, plucked a handful of leaves, and began eating, completely at ease. It was as if he had decided, in that moment, that we were no longer a threat, that we belonged, at least for now. The rest of the family continued as if nothing had happened. The younger gorillas played, tumbling through the underbrush. A mother cradled her baby, gently grooming its soft fur. Life carried on, and yet, everything felt different. I had spent my entire life believing that power was something loud, something forceful. But here, in the presence of this silverback, I realized true power wasn't about aggression. It was about presence, control. A quiet, undeniable confidence that needed no display. One of the guides turned to me and whispered, "He just let you be here. That was a privilege." I nodded, unable to find the words, because I understood. I had just been given a moment that few people on this planet would ever experience. Not just a close encounter with a wild gorilla, but a lesson. A moment of mutual respect between two very different beings who, for just a second, seemed to truly understand one another. Long after the silverback disappeared into the jungle, I stood there, trying to process what had just happened. My heart had finally slowed, my breathing steady, but my mind was racing. I had come here expecting to witness something incredible, maybe even capture a great story. But what I experienced was something deeper, something that would stay with me for the rest of my life. We often think of ourselves as the dominant species, the rulers of this planet. But standing in front of that silverback, I realized how small we really are, how little we understand. In his eyes, I didn't see an animal acting on instinct alone. I saw awareness, intelligence, and something else. A kind of wisdom that comes from existing in perfect balance with the world around you. We humans take, build, and consume without thinking. But he was just being. Fully present, fully alive, fully at home in a world we barely know. As we hiked back through the jungle, I felt different. Lighter, yet somehow more grounded. It wasn't just about the thrill of being so close to a wild animal. It was about what that moment meant. A silent conversation between two beings who, despite everything that separated them, had shared a brief, unspoken understanding. A moment of mutual respect in the purest sense. Now, every time I think back to that day, I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. not just for the experience, but for the lesson. That true strength isn't about proving anything. It isn't about dominance or power in the way we usually think of it. True strength is knowing who you are, holding your space in the world with quiet confidence, moving through life with a presence that speaks louder than words ever could. And that's why this wasn't just an encounter. It was a moment that changed me forever. Even now, as I sit here telling this story, I can still feel the weight of that moment. The way the air felt heavier, the way time seemed to slow, the way his eyes locked onto mine, and, for just a second, made me question everything I thought I knew about the wild. Experiences like this don't just fade. They stay with you. They change you. But here's the thing. These incredible creatures, these guardians of the jungle, are disappearing. Their homes are shrinking. Their families are threatened. And moments like the one I had, they may not exist for future generations if we don't do something now. If this story moved you, if you felt even a fraction of the awe and respect I did in that moment, then I urge you, learn about these animals. Support the organizations working tirelessly to protect them, because we are the only ones who can ensure that encounters like this remain possible, not just for us, but for them. And if you want to hear more stories like this, more moments that remind us of how small yet connected we really are, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the more we talk about it, the more we care. And the more we care, the more we can make a difference. Thank you for watching. And to the silverback I met that day, thank you for changing my life.